Welcome to another episode of the Africa GeoConvo podcast, a podcast about geospatial innovations and people doing great things with geospatial technology in Africa. My name is Amawanola. Have you ever wanted to, hear about data science in the geospatial field? Well, today on the show, we have Abba Barde. About Abba Barde is a data scientist at the Radiant Health Foundation. And today we'll be talking about all things data science, how to get started as a geospatial data scientist, what you need to learn, what resources you need to learn, and you'll also be hearing the amazing work at Radiant Health Foundation. But before I get started, I just want to say a huge thank you to the humanitarian OpenStreetMap team ORT for supporting this podcast. ORT is a non-profit organization dedicated to humanitarian response, and they work together with communities and organizations to provide map data and contribute to the achievement of sustainable development goals. So if you've been looking for how to volunteer for projects, contribute to OpenStreetMap, participate in mapathons, access grants, internships, job opportunities, please check out osm.org to get started. Also, we've had Hot on the podcast before in episode 2, Mapping Our World, Saving Lives. Please do look up the archive to listen to the episode to learn more about Hot. All right, let's get into the interview. Good afternoon, Abba Ade. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode today. I just want to start by asking you that would you like to give us like a little background introduction? We want our listeners to get to know you.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for having me on this podcast. And okay, so a bit of my background. So I am Abba. I'm a data scientist at Radiant Earth Foundation. I have been working as a data scientist across different industries for about 5 years now, getting to 5 years. And I worked in logistics, consulting, marketing, finance, and now I'm in the geospatial field now. And it's been quite a ride, actually.
Okay, so do you want to, like share with us your maybe your educational background as well? Like, you said you worked in a lot of industries, so we want to know like where did you start from?
Okay, so I have a bachelor's degree in computer science and electronic engineering from the University of Liverpool. And while I was studying my undergrad, I then came across the whole big data field, and I got interested in data science. So I then proceeded to do my master's in applied data analytics and big data at Data Science Tech Institute in France. And after my MSc, I worked for about 6 months in consulting and logistics before moving to marketing and finance, and then now geospatial field.
Wow, that's an interesting background. So while you started sharing about your work, you mentioned Radiant Earth Foundation, and I know that that has like a is connected to the geo. So do you want to tell us what Radiant Earth Foundation is and what you currently do with them?
Okay, so Radiant Earth Foundation is a non-profit organization which is working to develop Earth observation machine learning libraries and machine learning models through an open source hub that supports global missions like agriculture, climate change, and conservation. Part of the work we do is we open source the models which we build on our Radiant Earth ML hub, and it's accessible to anyone. And also, the data sets which we use as well are accessible to anyone to take it a step further and build more applications on it.
Okay, yeah, thank you for sharing that. But do you want to share with us like what you do for data? Like, how do you use your data science skills in the organization for the organization?
Okay, sure. So part of the work I do at Radiant Earth involves generating data sets for competitions which we run. Um, a project which I'm currently working on is using generative adversarial networks (GANs) to generate synthetic images and labels for different crop types across different regions. So um, the generated images are then used to feed a classifier which would improve the classifier's predictions basically. So the reason for this is getting labeled data from of earth observations is quite difficult, right? Because
Yeah.
it requires a lot of effort, and it costs a lot as well. So the idea is the little you have, you can use it to generate more data,
Mm-hmm.
which you could use to train a really good classifier
Mm-hmm.
that could predict different crop types across different regions.
That's so interesting. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned something about GANs. Is this something that is like very common in the data science world, or is this something that you like came up with or generated from just working with Radiant Earth Foundation?
Okay, so GANs have been around. It's quite recent. In when you look at it, it's been out for. I mean, I would say not so long. It came out, and so I'm sure you've heard of deep fakes, right? So deep fakes where they get someone's picture and you could see the person's face making different movements as if they're saying something else, right? So deep fakes are basically GANs in progress on videos there. So GANs have actually existed, and like I said, the name is generative adversarial networks. And what they do is they use the current information which you pass to the model, and it tries to generate new
Mm-hmm.
data for you. So you imagine I can pass it photos of an individual, and it would create that same photo of the individual in a different context. That's basically what GANs do. And we're using it at Radiant Earth to generate new Earth observations and their labels as well.
Okay, like that sounds very interesting. So I think the reason why we wanted to actually do this interview with you on the podcast is so we can get to have somebody with an experience in the data science world to share about their experience, and then to also help people who are trying to get started in the field. So I think the next question I would like to ask you would be um okay, maybe before we go into that, if you can maybe like give us an example of a project you've worked on in the past and what the what challenges you faced while you were executing those projects.
Okay. So uh in the data science field, I've worked on several projects, but one project which I worked on, which it was kind of difficult, is a project that involved trying to build an NLP model that would almost like a chatbot per se. And the most challenging part of it was actually getting the data right, because um data, yes, I know data is everywhere, but it's really difficult gathering data in this part of the world, because
Yeah.
most of it is not actually properly stored. So you either have to scrape, or you have to uh spend a lot of time sourcing for it from different sources, and that would take a huge chunk of the project, actually, of your time, sorry. So I would say data availability is the main problem which I usually face.
Okay. I was actually I was actually thinking you were going to say like working as a Joe, maybe working in a Joe. geography? Because I know you said you moved from other industries that were not geo related, and I know that the kind of data we use in the geo world is maybe like kind of different. So I was actually thinking you were going to mention something related to the geo world. So like, so can you maybe you can also share how it has been, moving from moving from working with the different kind of data you work with. I'm not sure maybe when you were working in other sectors you used all this geo data as well. But then how has it been like for you moving from that space where you used to work with data that do not have any geo reference in that sense, and then moving to a space where you now have to deal with data that have location information. Yeah.
Okay, it's been quite tricky to be honest,
Yeah.
because I I I attempted a competition
Mm-hmm.
before I joined Radiant Earth
Mm-hmm.
on crop type classification, and
Mm.
I was almost losing my mind, right? Because I didn't really have the GIS
Oh,
background,
okay.
like the geospatial background and
Mm.
all. But then when I joined Radiant Earth, it was a bit there was a steep learning curve which I needed to sit down and understand how the field works. So all the
Okay.
bands, so an image would have about 10 bands,
Yeah.
and you need to convert these images into numbers, right?
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
the models only understand numbers,
Mm.
and you're accounting for each of those bands while you're doing that. So
Mm.
it was a bit tricky, but at the end of the day, yes, it was done,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe anyone could do it as well.
Mm.
It's not rocket science, to be honest, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was tricky working with geospatial data,
Mm.
and
How
it
long did it
was
take for you to, like, you said it was tricky, like you said. How long did it take for you to get comfortable working with just special data?
okay within a month actually.
Really?
Yes, within a month.
Oh,
Yeah, actually, in fact,
mm.
less than a month probably, but yeah, let's say within a month.
Really? So that was so quick. So do you then say that people like do you then say that people that are actually doing data science right now, that are not like maybe in the geo world, do you say that if they want to now, transition into like a geospatial data scientist, do you say that like what would you recommend that they do since you have that experience already? You moved from a field where you were not using geodata to a field where you were using geodata. So what would you advise them to do? Or okay, and also, do you also call yourself a geospatial data scientist, or do you just call yourself like a data scientist? Do you see yourself as a geospatial data scientist?
Okay, so I'll start with the latter first. So I see myself
Mm-hmm.
as just a data scientist, and the reason
Mm.
for that
Okay.
is generally data scientists you are required to be versatile, right? You should have
Mm.
different information about different industries and all, because
Mm-hmm.
everything links at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
in the geospatial field now, what matters is knowing how to convert the images and the labels you have into numbers, and you pass it to the
Mm-hmm.
model, and you know how to interpret the results. And so, right from the part of converting them to numbers, it's the same with any other field because it's numbers you're playing with there, including NLP as well, natural language processing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about converting words or whatever it is to numbers and passing it
Mm.
to your model. So, that's why I would see myself just as a data scientist. But yes, I could call myself a geospatial data scientist. But
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So what tools do you like? And when you first started, I mean, like, okay. So the question I want to ask now is, when you were doing your data scientist or science without being in the geo world, like what tools were you using, and when you got into the geosphere, what additional tool did you get to use? Maybe I think.
okay, so
Yeah.
before joining the geospatial world, it was just Python,
Mm-hmm.
the deep learning stack, so TensorFlow, PyTorch, scikit-learn, that's for the normal machine learning, pandas, NumPy, just the standard data science stack. And then after moving to the geospatial world, it was more of using geopandas, um,
Mm.
working with raster images as well is a bit tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, Pillow, that's PIL, it's an image processing library as well, and Scikit
Oh.
image. So
Mm.
I had to pick up some more skills as to be able to process this data. But it's not like I haven't used those tools before, those libraries before. I've used them, but I just had to continue
Okay.
or go
Mm-hmm.
further in them.
That's great. Okay, so now I think that maybe this should have been the question we should have started with, because for me, I know that I hear about data scientists, I know I hear about machine learning, I hear about artificial intelligence. I would like to ask you, I mean, for the other people that are also listening, is science the general term for this other field, or like what would be the difference between a data scientist, a machine learning engineer, and maybe an AI engineer? I guess that's how they use it.
Okay, so different organizations actually have how they
Mm.
classify them, right? But
Okay.
generally, a data scientist, to me, I would say is someone that could build models. So get data, build models, and interprets the results,
Mm.
right? So then a machine learning engineer goes further in deploying the models and monitoring the model performance as well in production, right? But some organizations, they do two different things. So machine learning engineers do the research, and data scientists just do maybe um, analysis and interpretations of some results. And also it depends on the organization actually, but I would say it's generally the same, because in some organizations you do
Okay.
all of it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like you build the models, you deploy. Or yeah, some people say machine
Mm-hmm.
learning engineers are data
Mm-hmm.
scientists
Yeah.
with software engineering
Mm-hmm.
skills. But it depends on the company or the organization where you work. That's, I guess, would determine, but generally it's the same.
So now let's move into talking to people who are about to get started, like who wants to delve into the world of data science. So like, where do you think they should start from? When you started, what were the things, resources that you used that were very helpful in your in, at the beginning of your career?
Okay, where to get started, I would say, is develop
Mm-hmm.
interest first. Like you really need to be interested in the field, because it requires a lot, and sometimes you need to be patient. We have you should know statistics. Like you should go back to statistics and understand statistics. Like that's the major thing you would need, right? Because the machine learning models, or the models you're going to build, they're mostly statistically based, right? So statistics is key. Then
What happened?
learning Python, just have a very good idea on how to read in data with Python, and wrangle with data, so perform different operations with the data. That's another good step. And you read up on linear regression, the basic models, linear regression, logistic regression. And then you can take courses on Udacity or Udemy. There are a lot of open source courses as well, MOOCs, MOOCs, that you could just join to take courses. So it requires a lot of self study. I would say, even if you're going for a master's in the field, you would still need to do a lot of self study, because it's fast evolving. So many new things are coming up. So whatever you, whatever you think you know is irrelevant.
Okay, so the next question I want to ask you now is so what do you advise for people that actually like in the geo world? Do you think they should actually generalize as they get started, or they should like just become a special data scientist, or they should just start from the way that every other person like would start? Do you think they should just start calling themselves amateur special data scientists at the beginning of their career because they have the GIS knowledge already? Or do you think they should just go back, like you said, to learn basic of statistics and other maybe data and processes?
Okay, I would say they should just call themselves data scientists. I mean, the reason for this is you wouldn't want to limit yourself to only the geospatial field, right? The applications can go
Okay.
across different industries. So, yeah, it wouldn't be good to limit yourself just to geospatial, but because you're still using the same principles and concepts that any other data scientist would use. So, I would recommend using those data scientists.
Hmm. Okay. So what do you think makes a successful data scientist? What do you think makes somebody like a successful data
Okay,
scientist?
it's the I would say experience. Um,
Mm-hmm.
a successful data scientist should be experienced in interpreting results actually. So your interpretation of the results which you have would determine how good you would go, how good you are. Because anybody can build a model, right? But model evaluation is one rabbit hole that is very vast, and you really need to know exactly what you're looking for. So some cases, some people might be looking at F1 score, recall, precision. It depends on exactly what you want. But evaluating your models is the main thing.
Okay. So like I think something that just came to my mind now. I know that for a data analyst, normally, like if you get a data, you want to okay. So there are processes that you have to go through before you want to tell a story about the data that you have. Yeah, you have a data now, and then you explore the data to see okay, what can I tell, what story can I tell from this data? Then you like create your analysis and then tell that story with your results. I just want to ask, you've been talking about building models and all those stuff. So is it also the same way? Does it work for you guys the same way? Do you also get data and then think of what do I want to do with this data, and then you build a model that now does that thing? But then how do you guys like maybe think about it? I just want to like maybe get into the mind of the data scientist and see how it works for you because I'm thinking like so now that I have the data now as a data scientist, what then happens? So I think of okay, what do I want to do with this data? And then I build a model with that. I used to maybe answer the question I have in my mind. Is that how it works?
Yes, generally that's how it works actually. So first you get the data that was given to you or you've
Mm-hmm.
collected, and then you analyze the data. So you look at the different features of the data, so you see how the spread is, so you could know exactly what to do on each of the columns in some cases, or how you normalize that data. It depends on what exactly the kind of data is, but first you really need to look at it
Mm-hmm.
first. Then there's a goal which you might have now. So it could be um, crop yield prediction, right? So you're trying to build a model that would predict what the yield of this field would be, or the crop type there. Then now you have to, if it's like crop type classification, you know that okay, I'm meant to do classification on this. So you look at the classification models which you could build, and then you pass your data through it. So now the thing is sometimes you might have to build different models because maybe the first one which you thought might work, it didn't really work well. So you try out a different one. So it really depends on the use case which you're looking at. But first you really need to evaluate look at the data set well.
Mm, okay. Yeah, because I was just thinking, like, I get like that makes sense in my head now. I was just thinking, like, how does it work for you guys as well? So next question would be, what skills do you think? I mean, like you already mentioned, okay, I think maybe I missed it, but I just want to ask again, like what skills do you think like somebody that is getting started should learn? I mean, like even outside of the technical skills, like what other things do you think is very, very important for someone that is getting started?
So the skills to learn to get started, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so statistics, Python, SQL,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Okay.
then you learn presenting your results, so analysis basically. Those are the main skills which I would recommend anyone should learn. But statistics is key. You really need to perfect statistics.
Okay. Do you have any platform that you can recommend for people that are getting started? A platform they can learn from could be like a YouTube channel, could be like any other online resources that you can use to.
Okay. Yes. So for the statistics side of the models, how the models work,
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend Three Blue One Brown channel on YouTube. I'm
Okay.
sorry if I might be mixing it up, but three blue or three brown, one blue, something like that.
Okay.
Data Camp
Okay.
or
Data platform.
datacamp.com, that's a website. Then Udacity as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually offer scholarships once in a while. So
Mm-hmm.
you could apply for a scholarship and you could do the nano degree on data science or
Mm-hmm.
machine learning. You could pick anyone that works for you because it's quite detailed and they're quite good, some of the content on these courses.
Mm. Okay. So yeah, that's great. I think I will check out the YouTube channel, try and find out the real channel, and then add it to the show notes so that anyone who might be interested in using it can just get the link through the channel, through the show note, I guess. So, okay, so now the next question I want to ask is, so for people that want to get started, actually, I know like there's always this issue of do you need to go to grad school or do you need to, just start from anywhere you are? So, what do you think about that? Do you think that for anyone who wants to get started, or do you think a grad school degree is needed to start as a data scientist?
Oh, definitely not.
Mhm.
Because quite a number of people
Okay.
that I know, they actually started by self study.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd spend some time on some open source courses or some courses which you find online.
Mm-hmm.
You understand the concepts and you could start applying for internships or full time positions as well. But yeah, you don't really need grad school. So, grad school, yes, it could be a plus to have because it takes your knowledge further, right? But I don't think you really need grad school to be able to start this. I started without grad school, but I went later on to do the grad school.
Okay. So what makes a data scientist like for people getting started, like in the geospatial world now, we say okay, like build a map portfolio so that when recruiters are reaching out to you, when they're looking for people, you can just send them your portfolio and then they can see your work. So like what is portfolio we use in for people that are like map makers, like GIS analysts, and I know that for people that goes into the Python world of the geospatial sphere as well, they have their own GitHub accounts where they have like maybe the Python script they've written where they for analysis and all those stuff. So what are the things that you feel like people that get into this should have? Do you think they should also like have a portfolio and like what kind of portfolio then would make sense as a data scientist?
Yes, so it's actually good to have a GitHub portfolio, a GitLab portfolio that shows some of the work you've done. So some of the work which you've done could include um, just implementations of some of the um, basic models like linear regression or logistic regression, just to
Mm-hmm.
show that yes, you really understand how it works.
Mm-hmm.
You could pick up a random data set from Cargo and you do some analysis on it using either Matplotlib or whatever
Mm-hmm.
library you feel comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And you just host it all on your GitHub repo.
Yeah.
All of this is quite, it's just to showcase that, okay, you really know exactly what you're doing and
Mm.
you can take it further from there.
Yeah, you mentioned cargo, and I just realized that yeah, we actually. I mean, can you? I know that cargo should be like a platform where people can do competitions, I guess. If I'm right.
Yes.
Okay, so could you like possibly just also mention other places, other website where people that start getting started and do not know so much can also like get to maybe participate in competitions. And I know that Radiant Earth Foundation also has like some competitions that they put out there. Yeah.
Okay. So Kaggle, you could join Kaggle and partake in some of the competitions there, but the first competition I would recommend anyone to take on Kaggle, and
Mm-hmm.
even Kaggle recommends it, is the Titanic data set.
Mm,
So it's the data set is for the Titanic. It has people who survived and did not survive and details about them.
mm-hmm.
So that's a good competition to take. There's no prize money for that, unfortunately, um, but it's a good start. And if you keep trying out other data sets there and partaking in some of the competitions, you could go really far. Then there's Zindi.Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So at Radiant Earth, we host our competitions on Zindi.
Okay.
And uh, it's quite, it's almost like cargo, but it's tailored towards African problems.
Mm,
So the data sets are usually for Africa, and also
mm,
you could pick it up and go there, register, pick up any data set, and just try to play around with it and
mm.
submit your results. Who knows, you might be in the first of the competition and win the prize money.
Yeah. So do you have platforms where you also like share your knowledge, or like do you have how do you contribute back to the community? I mean, like I just want to ask that. Like, do you have platforms where do you have a YouTube channel, or do you do mentoring, or how do you contribute back to the community?
So I do mentoring
Mm-hmm.
mostly. So I just some people reach out and they say, "Oh, please, I need your guidance on a few things." And yeah, we have regular calls
Mm-hmm.
to be up to date. But some people have YouTube channels. They do master classes, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there are different ways to actually contribute to that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's like very great. And I guess we've had to talk about a lot of stuff, where to get started, and how to participate in competitions. You also mentioned about the Media Health Foundation competition that is hosted on Zindi. Could you, I mean, because you work in the organization, so I think like, would you like to maybe share more on the competition, how it works, if you want to participate, what to do? Are there like platforms where people can get to learn more about the competition? I know that there should be like a YouTube channel where they host some getting started tutorials on the competition. Maybe you would like to talk more about that.
Okay, yes. So actually, on the Radiant ML Hub,
Mm-hmm.
where the data was is being pulled from for the competition,
Mm-hmm.
there are actually tutorials on how to download the data set
Mm-hmm.
and read the data set, and also how to create a baseline model. So by baseline model, I mean a very basic model that you could use. So it's a good way to see how the data is downloaded and being passed to a model.
Yeah.
So from there, you can take it up and change the model which you have. But there are detailed notebooks that have all this information on it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Haba. Do you have like any last words you'd like to tell our listeners, that maybe someone that's getting started in the field? What would be your final call to action for them?
Okay. Just one thing. You can't run away from statistics. You really need
Hmm.
to understand statistics to to do data science.
Hmm.
That's the main thing I get, because a lot of people reach out saying, "Oh, they want to do data science," but
Mm-hmm.
once you bring up some statistics for them, everyone is backing out, right? So you can't run away from it.
Hmm. You can't run away from statistics, yeah. That's fine. So like, can you also like share how we can reach you? if you want to, if people want to reach out to you outside of this podcast, how can they reach out to you? Where can they reach out to you?
Okay. On LinkedIn, my name is ABBA. Then my surname on is BARDE. Abba Barde.
Okay.
It's on LinkedIn.
So can you call that again?
That's
Mm-hmm.
ABBA. Then BARDE. Abba Barde.
So you were okay. So that's for LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Are you also on Twitter? Maybe like Facebook
Yes,
or.
on Twitter as well. It's just my name, without a space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Okay,
Abba
just your
Barde.
name without a
Yeah.
space. Oh, okay. GitHub.
On GitHub,
Mm-hmm.
AJATAU.
AJ.
Age
Sorry, can you come
Ajato,
again?
AJATAU.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Mm. So my final question would be like, what do you think the future of data science is like? What do you think? What do you think will happen in the next 5, 6, 7 years? I guess.
In the next 5, 6, 7 years, it's going to be a very, very key position in several organizations,
Mm.
and it's going to be a skill which every individual should at least have, right? Because companies are moving towards making data-driven decisions, so
Mm.
everyone should be able to use data to make decisions
Yeah.
on their for themselves within an
Mm-hmm.
organization. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone should learn something in data science at least.
Yeah, so I guess that's it. So thank you so much for joining me on the call today. I hope it's been a like amazing process for you. Like it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
It was really great talking to you as well.
And that's it for the interview with Hava. Thank you so much for listening. We hope we've been able to provide enough tips for you to get started or help you in your career. We hope this podcast has been helpful to you and you start as you start up progress in the geo field, and we hope to bring you more amazing and interesting conversations. Finally, we like to get your feedback and opinion, so always feel free to share your feedback or opinion with us. Or if you have a request or topic ideas, or anybody that is doing great things with jazz in Africa, please connect us with them. You can easily reach us by sending us a DM on Twitter at Africa Geo Convo. You send us a mail at africageoconvo@gmail.com, or you check out our website, africageoconvo.com. We'll be so glad to hear from you. And please don't forget to keep supporting this podcast by sharing this podcast with your networks. Thank you. Bye bye.